Good evening and welcome back to 13 Horror Nights. It's episode 8 and tonight's movie is Bad Ben. Now, except for the first and last movie of these things, I select every single movie at random. I have a list of all of them at the beginning, but day to day, it's always random which movie I pick using a random number generator or literally just picking the names out of a hat. So it's complete coincidence that this movie came right after Rorschach from yesterday. I said in that review that there was another movie that sort of shows that you can make a movie even though you don't have that many resources, and Bad Ben is the ultimate conclusion of that idea. As far as I can tell, Bad Ben is literally one man alone in a house with a camera making a found footage horror movie. And it was apparently a TV movie, and it spawned to have so many sequels. I think we're at 6 now. So I'm guessing, at the very least, he likes making these movies. Now, I saw the trailer, and it's one guy who's going to this house to flip it, which is basically buy, a cheap, crappy house and, fix it up and then sell it for a profit. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this movie does not look very good. It looks very campy and cheap. One of the things that in the trailer that they showed, a really terrible effect, it was supposed to, simulate a ghost getting under the covers of a bed, but they literally used, a Photoshop bulge to simulate that. There are so many other things they could have done, and this movie seems really campy, almost like a horror comedy, but apparently I don't think it is supposed to be. In one of the other trailers, they were talking about how, there are ghosts of the old inhabitants, and, there's, a picture that a little kid drew, and it says, Mom, Dad, Good Ben, and then show, a little black monster that said Bad Ben, so I have no idea if this movie's gonna be any good. It might surprise me, it might not. I'm kind of dubious about this one. This one, I'm kind of skeptical about. If it's not very good, I'm not gonna be that surprised, is all I'm saying. Alright, I guess I'll see you when I'm done watching it. Alright, Bad Ben was definitely an interesting case. If you want to know if it's exceeded my expectations, yes and no. I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10, but I don't want you to hear that as meaning it's exactly on the same level as Rorschach from yesterday. I think, there's a different vibe between these two movies. When watching Rorschach, you get the impression that it wants to be something great. It wants to be something really good and shocking. I don't really get that from Bad Ben. I think it was just something that this guy made for fun. And when you go into it with that in mind, you can have fun watching Bad Ben. It's not a great found footage movie. It does have some good scares in it, I'll give it that, but it doesn't have, a really compelling story or very compelling characters. This is more you're marveling at the technicals of it, considering that this really is one guy making an entire movie by himself. Now, you don't ever see anybody else on screen, but there are some effects here that I can't imagine he did by himself and needed at least one other person to, walk around or pull things, but for the most part, I have no trouble believing that this is one man doing this entire thing. Now, I do think that this is possible to make something amazing with just one person. I do not think that Nigel Bach or Nigel Batch is that person. He does have good ideas, the plot of this movie is very good, and a lot of the scares are good, but he is not a very compelling actor. He's also not a very compelling screenwriter. The script of this movie is not very good. It did one of the biggest no-nos of found footage, which is acknowledging the fact of, why am I deciding to document every single solitary thing I do and not answer it? You either never bring that up at all, or you give them a reason. A lot of times it's I need to record this, people need to see this, but in this one, they literally bring it up and then just leave it hanging there. I'd say that the footage of this movie is split half and half between, the footage from the main character Tom's phone and the security camera set up all over the house. There are, I think, 29 of them, and they, do a lot. It's a lot like what they do in the Paranormal Activity movies, where it goes from one camera to the other. And in this one, there are so many cameras that he doesn't really need to break out the handheld very often. But he does need the handheld for, when he goes into the attic where there's no camera, or when he goes out into the backyard. Now, the plot of the movie is as described in the trailer. This guy is trying to flip a house, and this does sort of bring up why he doesn't just leave. He apparently put every penny that he had into flipping this house, which seems extremely foolhardy, considering, I don't know, does this guy flip houses for a living, or was this just an impulse buy? One thing I do like about this, about his character arc at least, is that it starts out with him just being, like, annoyed by this happening because he doesn't know it's ghost, but once the ghosts, like, he actually knows that it's a haunting, it's like a mix of both he is scared of it, but he also is angry at it because he needs this to go through and he's not willing to back down. He wants to fight against it. One thing I really do like about this movie is that it goes for a lot of the very subtle scares. One of the very first scares in the entire movie is that he's in one of the bedrooms and then, like, you see him talking on the phone on screen right, and then on screen left there's the door and it's open, and you see something black walk behind it through the little crack in the door. And you see this black figure all throughout this movie. There's a lot of shots of the house at night, and then you see the black figure walk from room to room. You never really see it directly, but you see, like, a lot of times it cuts back to the view of the house from the, like, from the driveway, and then you see it go from room to room and, like, darken the windows, and it's very spooky, and that was pretty well done. I think that this guy has potential as a director, but not really as an actor. He gets the job done, I guess, but and it's also just not helped by the fact that the script writing is pretty bad, but he's not a very compelling actor, and therefore Tom isn't a very compelling character, which is not a good thing considering he's literally the only character in the film. Once I was done watching this, I read some of the reviews on Amazon, and one of them said something along the lines of, not great, but certainly a labor of love. And I do think that sums up Bad Ben pretty well. From a technical standpoint, it's not a great movie. It's good/okay. But when you consider the fact that this was a project almost entirely done by one person, you can tell that there was a lot of effort put into this. Again, I don't get the impression I get from Rorschach of it, which was that we're going to make a really, really good movie. I think it was just him making the movie that he wanted to make, and that does come through. Also, considering the fact that he went on to make 5 more of them, I think he did have fun making it. If you go into Bad Ben expecting it to be this, like, really well-made hidden gem, like Hell House LLC or something, you're gonna be disappointed. But like with Rorschach, if you go into it with the right mindset, you can have fun with it. It's not a great movie, but it's good. It's good. Going into spoilers, I think at the beginning, Tom believes that these are just ghosts, but as the hauntings keep getting more and more violent, that awful effect from the trailer of the Photoshop bulge getting under the bed, that was one of the things in the movie, but, like, the ghost, like, beats him up. Like, there's blood all over his face afterwards. Clearly, this is getting really aggressive. And he gets aggressive in response. He, like, tries to basically exorcise the house, and it looks like he succeeded. Like, I don't think anybody watching this movie, like, believes he actually succeeded, but he certainly does, and it looks like he did. And then we get to the final part of the movie where there was a point where, like, at the beginning there were, like, crosses on the wall and, like, other Christian memorabilia, and he took it down because I guess that made the house more sellable, but then he put it back up, and then when he came there one day after going out to eat, the cross was on the floor, and there were a bunch of voodoo dolls that he had previously thrown away, literally pinned to the wall with a knife. And clearly that means that the spirit is not gone, and then he goes down to the basement because there was a door in the basement that was locked and he couldn't open it the entire time. With an axe, he breaks into it, and then apparently you see a little bit in the basement, but you don't really see exactly what he saw. I think he saw the actual, like, dark, shadowy figure, the Bad Ben monster. But you just hear him scream and try to run for his life, and he's literally dragged back down. A lot like the dragging scene in Paranormal Activity. And the last part of the movie is literally seeing him with that axe in his chest being dragged across the ground of the basement by an invisible force. And then the movie just stops. I think that this director would be better suited to actually having, you know, I don't want to say, like, actual actors, but people who have acting as their forte actually be the stars of the movie and just have him be the idea guy and, like, the director. And apparently the next movie is like that, and it tells the story of what actually happened to the previous inhabitants, because you get a vague outline, but you don't know any details. But then they just make movie after movie after movie after movie, and just reading the summaries of some of them, it just seems like it gets sillier and sillier as it continues. So I might watch the second one day. I don't think I want to pursue it any further. In a way, I guess I can understand why this movie apparently became kind of like a cult classic among people who like found footage, because it is very impressive just in concept of the fact that it's pretty much just one person in a house making a horror movie. It's not great, but it is entertaining and fun at points and does have some good scares in it. I'd say if you're interested, check it out. And with that, I'll see you guys tomorrow.